We're picking up in our story from John chapter 11. Remember, Jesus was in a town with his disciples and he got word that a good friend of his, Lazarus, was sick. But Jesus already knew that he had died. And while he was there, he waited 2 days before going back to the town where Lazarus' family was, his sisters Martha and Mary, who were very good friends with Jesus. So Jesus makes the journey. Now, remember, I also said that there's an importance for the number of days. The Bible is very, very specific about this. It took 1 day for the messenger to get to Jesus, and then Jesus hung out for 2 days, and then Jesus went back to the town where Lazarus was, so that makes a total of 4 days, and that's very important because it's going to come up here in a second. So remember, Jesus finally makes his way to the town, back to see the family, and Martha comes out to greet him, and the first thing Martha says is that, you know what, Jesus, if you were here, Lazarus wouldn't have died. But Jesus wanted to assure her, said, listen, you know what, he is going to rise again. And of course, Martha thought Jesus meant at the last day, the day of the resurrection, when all the dead people will rise again. But Jesus was referring to what he was going to be doing very soon. Only Martha didn't see that because she didn't understand. And then Jesus put the question to her. He said, listen, I'm the one who's going to raise people from the dead. I'm the one who gives life. Do you believe that? And Martha said she did. All right. And then she leaves. So we're going to pick up the story in John chapter 11, verses 25 to 45. Then she left him and returned to Mary, and calling her aside from the mourners, told her, he is here and wants to see you. So Mary went to see him at once. Now Jesus had stayed outside the village at the place where Martha met him. When the Jewish leaders who were at the house trying to console Mary saw her leave so hastily, they assumed she was going to Lazarus' tomb to weep. So they followed her. When Mary arrived where Jesus was, she fell down at his feet, saying, Sir, if you had been here, my brother would still be alive. Mary says the same thing that Martha had said to Jesus. That means that those two were thinking the same thing. They were thinking, if Jesus was here, yeah, we believe Jesus would have helped him out. Jesus would have cured him, but he wasn't here. So they're both showing how they're upset. They could be angry. They could be mad. All right. But either way, they're disappointed that Jesus wasn't there to help them out from the beginning. All right. But Jesus is there now. So when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jewish leaders wailing with her, he was moved with indignation and deeply troubled. Where is he buried? He asked them. Jesus was mad. Jesus was very angry at this. He wasn't mad at them for crying and being upset and yelling and screaming. What Jesus was mad about was why he was there. He looked at death. He saw what was going on. He saw how ugly and disgusting death is. And he wanted to do something about it. And he knew he was going to do something about it. Jesus knew that he was there for that reason. He was there, and he's here now to overcome death. And that's what he's going to do in a few seconds here. We're going to read that. When they told him, come and see, Jesus wept. They were close friends, the Jewish leaders said. See how much he loved him. But some said, this fellow healed a blind man. Why couldn't he keep Lazarus from dying? And again, Jesus was moved with deep anger. And they came to the tomb. It was a cave with a heavy stone rolled across its door. Roll the stone aside, Jesus said. But Martha, the dead man's sister, said, by now the smell will be terrible. He has been dead 4 days. Here it is. In Jewish tradition, back then, and maybe even still now, the belief was that when somebody died, their spirit hung around the body for 3 days to see if it could come back. And then if it came back, everybody's like, okay, the spirit came back. So Jesus waited an extra day simply for the fact that he didn't want people to think that it was just a coincidence and that it was mere tradition. He was there to show them that their traditions are meaningless and that they're not accurate, and that he was going to do something about it. That's exactly why he did it. So again, I'll read this again. But Martha said, the dead man's sister said, by now the smell will be terrible, for he has been dead 4 days. But didn't I tell you that you will see a wonderful miracle from God if you believe? Jesus asked her. Now, Jesus is not saying here that if you believe, I'm going to do the miracle. What he's saying is that if you really truly believe me, what you're going to see is a miracle. You're going to see the beauty in what I do. And think about it, and I can tell you from experience, I walked around, not seeing it that way. All right, I didn't see God's hand in everything in my life. I didn't see God's hand in the world. Now I do. And that's the perspective I have been talking about. Once you start to follow God and you call Jesus into your heart, you let him take over, you start to see things in a different perspective. And that's what Jesus is saying here. Jesus is saying here, if you truly believe in me, you're going to see the miracle. If you don't believe in me, you're not going to see the miracle. You're just going to think it's just something maybe spectacular. But you're not going to see that it's me who did the work. You're not going to see that it's God who does this work. So they rolled away the stone. Then Jesus looked up to heaven and said, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me, of course. But I said it because all these people standing here so that they will believe you sent me. Then he shouted, Lazarus, come out. And Lazarus came out, bound in the grave cloth, his face muffled in a head swath. Jesus told them, unwrap him and let him go. And so, at last, many of the Jewish leaders who were with Mary and saw it happen finally believed him. But some went away to the Pharisees and reported it to them. Jesus, back in the beginning of this story, delayed on purpose. And he delayed on purpose, telling his disciples, I'm doing this because I'm giving you another opportunity to believe in me, to believe who I am. That's what this is all about. Jesus knew after the first day, after the messenger came to him, that Lazarus was already dead. Jesus knew what he was going to do about it. Jesus waited on purpose so that the tradition of the Jewish belief at the time could expire. Once 4 days went by, there was no reason to think that the Spirit came back on its own. Jesus was doing this on purpose. Jesus was also doing this to show people that if you trust in him and you call on him, he will come and help you. So Jesus gets there, and he sees what it's doing to people. He sees the people who are mourning, who are wailing and crying. He sees how disgusting and painful death is. And Jesus wants to do something about it. Jesus is looking at the universe. He's looking at all of creation. He's saying, listen, he goes, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this. He goes, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm here right now. I am going to raise Lazarus, and I am going to show you all that I overcome death, that I have that power. So when Jesus is saying that he has the power to overcome death, don't you believe that he has the power to overcome any problems you have in your life? That's what he's all about. He's there. He's here to show you how much he loves you and how much he cares for you. That's why he did this. That's why he does the things he does. That's why he allows the things he allows. So that we can go to him and say, hey, can you help me with this? Please, show me you love me. Help me with this. The other thing about Jesus in this is that he cries. Yeah, this hurts him so much to see other people, to see people that he created upset and crying. So know that when you're upset and crying over something, Jesus is crying with you. And then what does Jesus do? He proves it to everybody. He says, this is it. I'm done with this. Lazarus, come out. Now, the interesting thing about the translation on that is what he said was, Lazarus, this way. So imagine Lazarus is there. He's been dead for 4 days. I don't know where he was. I don't know what he was doing, And then he hears a voice. A voice calls his name. And he gets up and he walks out. Just imagine the sight that was going on. Imagine how that could have been. I mean, think about it. If you're at a funeral home and all of a sudden the person in the casket gets up and walks out. You ask them, how did you do that? And they'll probably tell you, well, you know what? I heard this voice that told me to get up. That's how it works. That's how these things happen. That's how the spiritual realm operates. We don't see it because we're limited in our human bodies. But Jesus is here to overcome all of that. He is the one that gives life. He is the one that gives resurrection after the dead, after you die. It's him and him alone, and he just proved it. He proved it also in the fact that other Jewish leaders believed him then. Remember, the Jewish leaders they were going after him for a while. A lot of them were. All right, some of them believed. They believed because they met Jesus. Everybody in these stories that I've read over the past few weeks believed Jesus because they met him. They saw what he could do. Now, what we're going to do next week is, since we're coming up on Easter, I'm going to pull a few stories out. I'm just going to read them to you because it's very important to understand that what happens after this story is that the Jewish leaders, the ones that chose not to believe in him, are trying to kill him. The plot is to kill Jesus. There has to be a reason. So what I'm going to do next week is I'm going to read a few stories on how the Jewish leaders reacted to the things Jesus did. So hopefully that will bring us right up to Easter and you'll understand why Jesus was crucified. Anyway, have a great week.